Speed Fix. Back in this video to talk about more Google Search Console. In this video, we're talking about this 404 or not found 404 error in Google Search Console under the indexing pages section. So let's talk about 404s. We actually get a lot of questions about these. There's a lot of misconceptions about 404. So let's just run through kind of the highlights first and talk about that for a minute before we dig into Google Search Console and what to do. So let's talk about 404s. They're not inherently bad. There's kind of this idea that 404 errors are horrible and should be avoided at all costs. That's not true. If a page shouldn't exist on a site, it should actually 404 out. An error message, 404 not found, is the correct message the server should be returning. And just to be clear, it's not just the page that you see as a visitor in the browser that should say 404. The server actually returns a status code, a 404 status code to the browser instead of a 200 OK code. So your hosting or your website actually needs to return that 404. There are some plugins here. I just have a note here. There's some plugins that do allow you to stop 404s happening entirely. They can redirect all 404s to a particular page. Broadly speaking, that's not a good idea. It's bad for SEO overall, holistically, especially over time. But it can open you up to negative SEO attacks very easily because you're redirecting all these things that you should tell Google don't exist, but you are actually redirecting them somewhere. There's also some situations where CMS systems are broken and they're just not returning a 404 message. They actually show a 404 page, but they return a 200. So we want to avoid those scenarios where we're totally avoiding a 404 message by redirecting them. And we want to make sure our hosting generates a technically correct 404 message. So there's an easy way to check this, and I'll show you. On our website, there is a free SEO audit tool under here. So if you go to our website, I've got a free SEO audit. It takes like 60 seconds, 90 seconds, and just run it. There's no opt-in required. There is a section, I've just searched for 404. There's a section here about 404. So custom on this website found a 404 page and it responded with the correct message. So you want the server to respond with a 404. So that's probably a good first check to do to make sure that you have technically correct 404s coming from your hosting or your website. So that's an easy one. There's no opt-in required there, so go and run that test. In Google Search Console, there's really two places that 404s actually appear, and I'll go through the first one. So typically you'll see them under indexing and pages, but they're also under the crawl section, and the crawl section is arguably more important. The data in there is more important than maybe the indexing section. So we'll talk about both of those in a second. Some other things, 404s, especially in WordPress, if there's a lot of them, they can actually hurt performance quite a bit. So if you have a lot of 404s and a high frequency of them, in WordPress, 404s are processed at the PHP level. So in theory, you can flood a site with 404s. So you generate a 404 error on the server end and technically knock it over. So if you hammer a site hard enough, because of the way WordPress handles a 404 message, you can actually crash the site. So if you're a site owner, you want to avoid too many 404s because that can knock the site over and make it crash. And I have here common types of 404s that we see. The most common one we see, or the scenario we see where this would be a huge performance problem for site speed, is if you have something in the website code, so type on the website code or something in the website template that is referring to a file or a resource that doesn't exist. So commonly it's an image that's missing, that's been deleted. It might be a CSS file or JavaScript file, and I'll show you an example in a second. But these are the worst type of 404s because they are bad for speed. So anytime that the browser loads a page and it gets a 404 message, it needs to figure out what to do, especially if it's something to do with the template or theme, which means it's site-wide, but it's also trying to render the page and gets this error message. So if you have a custom 404 page, it's sending the browser off to get that, which can be a couple of seconds of lag, and then the browser has to process and work it out. So if you have a 404 in the template, something erroring out, it can make the website load feel like it lags or kind of stalls halfway through. So it's bad for speed. It's bad for SEO as well because Google doesn't like error messages. And like we've talked about in some of the other videos, when you give Google errors to deal with or conflicting signals, it's bad. Google has to figure out what to do with it, and it's just generally overall bad for SEO and ranking. So we want to avoid 404s in the template of that nature in particular because they will hurt performance. So if you have a scenario where something in your footer, typically where we see these errors, something in the footer is generating a 404 message, and you do a mail out and have 5,000 or 10,000 people hitting the site in a short period of time, that can knock over the hosting very easily. That's a very common scenario. So let's look at Google Search Console. So there's a couple of ways. Well, before we get into that, you can be proactive, and you should be proactive about your site if you care about SEO or care about marketing. So there's a few different ways to find 404s in advance. So one is in Google Search Console, but there's other tools you can use as well. One, try our site speed test tool. So again, it's free, takes 90 seconds, no opt-in required, and it's a good way of picking up. You'll see here, I'll show you in this one. So this is just a test I'm poking around and I found. So it'll find 404 messages. So we have them in the critical section. So this is a good example of a template that has 404s. So we put that in critical because it's bad for SEO and bad for rankings. And if you scroll down here, these guys here with the red next to them, they're 404ing out. So there's actually a few on this one. So it has some sort of cookie. This is JavaScript file. So I think this will expand out. Nope. That's a JavaScript file. So that's going to be bad for the site render. And then it's actually got a favicon that is 404ing out. And this is a very common issue. You want to make sure you have a favicon.ico file. That is another type of 404 we see. These what we would call technical SEO 404. So these are like favicon files, ads.txt files. So we'll talk about that in a second. But we want to avoid those because they're super simple and easy to fix. And also this obviously has some live chat. So it looks like even 2 versions of the live chat are embedded maybe. And that's erroring out too. So there's actually 3 404s on this page. So this needs to be fixed on this site here. So this will be really bad for speed. So just one is bad, but when you have multiples like this, it's going to really slow down the site render and make it problematic. So that's that. So that's Site Speed Bot. Run a site-wide SEO audit tool. We like Screaming Frog SEO Spider, but there's other ones, Ahrefs, SEMrush. Those are also, they're all good. So basically any SEO tool that will crawl the site will find 404s. And then an SEO plugin. Most SEO plugins will monitor for 404 errors. We like Rank Math. There's a link there. The pro version is well worth it, but most SEO plugins will track 404 errors and allow you to kind of deal with them in a console, create redirects or whatever. So that would be worth running through this exercise and just to clean up your site. So that's that. But let's look at Search Console. Let's go over here. So I'm in this site and we want to be in the domain property. Remember, we talked about in some of the other videos in Google Search Console, you can have a domain-wide level account, or you can have one for each type of URL or each URL variation. So this HTTP, HTTPS, www, no www. You want to be in the domain level one. That's going to show you all the data. The individual host names, they won't show you all the data. So we want to be in domain property. So when you're working with this, use domain property. Okay, well, let's talk about I'll just move my little picture over the way. We want to be over here under settings and then crawl stats. So we actually want to start here because these are more impactful 404s that will pick up. So click open report and you'll get this crawl report here that will look like this. So it'll give you a whole bunch of data. There is a 404 section here, but before we even get into that, this is a very common issue you'll see if you have an old site. So this site is more than 15 years old. So it's been around a while. So it actually has these 2 different host names that actually have errors, crm.didgeridoodojo and store.didgeridoodojo. And those no longer exist. They're old. So those must still have DNS records. So those actually just should be deleted from DNS because they don't exist anymore. So those will be generating, if I click on them, let's see. Yeah, so this one's generating 301s. So that's generating errors. They're not generating 404s, but that doesn't exist anymore. And CRM, let's look at that. So this one's generating, so 52% of the loads here generate a 404. So that's not good. So that needs to be cleaned up or deleted. So let's just go back. So that I put down in here, old URLs. So yeah, but this is we commonly see this with older sites. So there we go, old host names that should be deleted. Okay, down here there's a section here, 404s. So this one's not too bad. We see some of the CRM stuff that we just saw, but a very common one is you see Google crawling for this file, ads.txt. It doesn't stand for ads advertising. There is a article here I've linked you to. There we go, authorized digital sellers. That's what ADS stands for. If you're not selling ads on your site, you don't really need this file, but we want to avoid the 404, so it's probably wise to just create a blank file. So just here, create a blank ads.txt, and then that will go away. It also gives you a little bit of protection against dodginess because this file technically tells Google who's allowed to run ads or sell ad inventory on your site. So if the file's empty, nobody's allowed. So it is kind of, in a sense, a kind of security precaution to have that file or have a blank version of that file that just doesn't generate a 404. So that'll be the scenario there. You see Google's trying to crawl it a lot, multiple times, or on these different subdomains. There you go. Every couple of days it's trying to crawl it. So that's not ideal. We don't want Google getting any errors at all. So we want to get rid of that. What else do we have? So these well-known, believe this is for Android, something relating to it. We don't have an Android or an Apple iPhone app for this site, so those are fine to 404 out. What else do we have? Here we have this should be a 404. This is just a bad link, something Google is crawling that doesn't exist. These are old CSS files that don't exist. That's not really an issue either. Let's see. Generally this is actually pretty clean. Usually we see a lot of garbage here, but really deleting this CRM host name is going to help a lot. This stuff will go away. So that's that one. Let's have a look at a couple of other sites. Okay, this one, similar, ads.txt. This is very common. This is again an old site. It's been around 15, 20 years in some form or another. This site's gone through a lot of versions. So you'll see there's stuff here from old themes, old versions of the site, different sort of URLs, that sort of thing. So some of these we might want to pick out and 301 redirect to the right page on the site, to the current version of the page. Some of them, like images, like theme images, this might be from an old version of the site, old design from the site. One useful thing to do is export it to Google Sheets, and then you'll get it there and you can manipulate the data, filter it, sort it, see what's going on. A lot of this stuff you'll see here, there's landing pages here for different locations, so those may be important. If something's getting crawled a lot with a lot of frequency, it might have links pointing to it. So if something has a lot of links pointing to it, then we might want to 301 redirect that to another page. A common problem we see is with e-commerce sites, and I think I made a note here, old URLs. So this is very common in e-commerce where you have products come and go. Those products will pick up links over time or authority. So if you have an e-commerce site where products come and go, or they get replaced or made obsolete, then we probably want to replace those URLs or redirect those URLs to the appropriate product that's replaced it, or the appropriate category. So that way you're not losing link juice. If someone clicks on that link that's around the web, they'll still get directed to the site or the appropriate category. So that's, if you have a WooCommerce site or e-commerce site, this is a really important one. I think there was a note we had in there about negative SEO. So this is another common one we're seeing, and I think this one had some garbage going on. Here we go. This one. And just remember, with any of these links, you can kind of click into them and get some more information. You can see if they're indexed, what's happening, where the referrer is coming from. So this one, we couldn't find the referrer, but there were some other garbage URLs here somewhere. Maybe this one here. Sometimes it's a negative SEO attack. So if that is the case, we do want them to 404 out. Like, we don't want to have them resolve to proper pages or redirect. No, it doesn't show either. There was some I picked up before I hit record, and there was a site that was referring these dodgy links. So in that case, we probably want to disavow that domain and make that go away. But yeah, broadly, I probably want to, this one, because it's a bigger site and there's a lot more in here, I would export it to a Google Sheet. So go through this process, export to Google Sheet, and then manage it in there, decide what I'm going to do there, filter it. And there's some of these are going to be genuine URLs from an old version of the site. Some of them are garbage. Some of them we want to redirect to the page on the current site. So that's that one. Let's see. I think that's enough for crawl stats. Let's see what else we got. Let's look in the indexing section. So under here, under pages, under indexing pages, you'll see not found here. And yeah, so this is the same site, and let's have a look at all the URLs. So same thing here, we can export it to Google Sheets, manage it in there. But here we have some PDFs. So these PDFs may be important, they may be worth redirecting. Some of these are like theme locations. This is not ideal, so let's see where that's coming from. That actually may be a typo in the code somewhere. Yeah, so looking at this, that's one that we want to investigate. We shouldn't be linking just to this folder here in the theme. So that one we probably want to do some work on and find out what's going on there. Let's see. default.htm. This would be an old version of the site. This may still have links pointing at it. So again, we probably want a 301 redirect that. Let's see. Some of these are like, again, location pages that may not exist anymore. Let's see. Some of these garbage links again. This definitely look like a negative SEO attack. Let's look at this. Yeah. Phew. Okay. Interesting. It's coming from an internal link. That's not ideal. That's probably one that needs to be investigated as well. If the site has been hacked, we may see a lot of this stuff too. Let's have a look. See what's going on here. Okay, so this is one. This site here, we probably want to disavow this one. So this is where these garbage links are coming from. MF Mox. That one probably worth disavowing. Let's see. There's a lot of that stuff going on here. Yeah, so this one's pretty messy. So this one, yeah, would definitely need some Google Sheets. You're probably not aware, you can also see links inside Google Search Console. So this one I would do some more work on for this site. Let's have a look. So, okay, downloadtechnology.ru. Okay, so that's a Russian site. If you go to links here, you can see where links are coming from, where Google is seeing the links coming from. So you may be able to do some troubleshooting here. Look at these top linking sites and go in there and clean them up that way, or maybe disavow some of the garbage links that are pointing at the site if they are genuinely kind of spammy stuff or look like negative SEO. So these actually look like negative SEO because there's so much of it. Okay, so there's a lot of garbage there. So that one actually probably needs some work. That's not good. Okay, so that's that one. Let's look at this one here. So this is WP Speedfix, our website. This is actually pretty clean. I don't really care about any of these. These are probably just genuine 404s that Google has picked up along the way. We don't really need to redirect them. This is orders is our order management system, so we don't really care about those. So these 404s are pretty clean, so I wouldn't really do any redirects for these. I would just let them 404 out. Those are just natural 404s, pretty standard, so not much to do there. And let's look at this site, Mal Atwell. So this is a big e-commerce site on Magento. So we talked about this in one of the other videos where Magento, particularly the old version of it, Magento version 1, has a lot of problems with canonical URLs or canonical URL issues. So you can see here, there's a lot of these review URLs in here that probably shouldn't exist. These are probably from old products, but Google probably shouldn't be trying to index these review lists. So I'd probably do some work here and I'd probably disallow that review string. So I'd add something like, I'd be like disallow /review like that. So that's areas of the site we don't want crawled. So we definitely don't want, I'd probably go and find that URL for a genuine product that still exists and have a look at what it looks like. And if we don't want those pages indexed, we would just block that with the robots.txt file because there's a lot of that stuff here by the look of it. There's a lot of old products here. So we definitely want to look at redirecting some of these. So I'd say this site has a problem where products come and go and then they're just allowed to 404 out, which we probably don't want to do. You can see here, this site has hundreds, maybe thousands of products, so we don't want this to happen. Let's just see. Yeah, very common with e-commerce. Yeah, that's pretty much all the same. So that's pretty much it. So there's lots of different ways there. I'll put these notes under the video. So we talked about typos and templates, old host names, technical 404s, negative SEOs, negative SEO attacks, sorry. Old URLs are common in e-commerce, just general typos in the code. If you run a site-wide tool like Screaming Frog, you'll pick those up. It'll give you a list of 404s. Likewise with old images. This one's hard to fix if you don't have a copy of those old images, but that can be a common one, particularly if you are in an industry that relies a lot on images or image SEO. And areas of the site we don't want crawled. So those are the most common types. It's not all of the types we would see, but it's a lot of them and the most common ones. So that's pretty much it for this video. Like I said, if you want to dig in, so we have our free SEO audit tool there. So it's under our more free stuff menu at wpspeedfix.com. Our site speed test tool, again, under here, free site speed test. And we have our free Core Web Vitals report. If you want help with SEO, we do have a Google Search Console audit service. We also have a full SEO audit service you'll see on here. If you're not sure, go to the homepage of our site and just request a free audit. We can have a look at your site and tell you how we can help, what we can help with, if we can help you reach your goals. But otherwise, post any questions in the comment section and we'll come back to you. Cheers.